All right, good evening. Again, I'm Anthony Price. I'm Deputy Superintendent here at Goose Creek CISD for Administrative Services. On behalf of Mr. O'Brien in his absence, I'd like to welcome you to, again, one of our fun meetings for this evening. I know we have some new folks here tonight, so we want to welcome you and thank you for coming out and joining us this evening. But we're going to jump right on into our discussion. First of all, let's recap or review some of the things we've covered over the last few meetings. We've heard a lot of information over the last couple of meetings. We've heard district administrators cover and outline their respective needs and priorities. We've heard and participated in an exercise that allowed us to voice or show our feedback. We listened to a bond capacity analysis. And then on our last meeting, several of us asked for input or what is the district's most critical needs. And that was emailed out to you today. And you should have that in front of you. If you did not get the email, it was handed out tonight. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right into it and start that discussion. Tonight we're going to go over a demographic update, followed by a project's outline, timeline, and finally we're going to look at and review the list of critical projects. Those critical projects have been broken down into 4 categories: major projects, specialties, technology, and upgrades and renovations. And I'm going to turn it over now to my Director of Facilities Planning and Construction, Ms. Brenda Garcia.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to jump right into a couple of items that were requested of us last time we met. And one of them was taking a look at where we're at with our student enrollment projections. And you should all have copies of the items that are up here on the projector. So the first page that you're looking at there is projected new housing occupancies. If you focus on the last column, grand total, what this is saying, and it's showing you all kinds of housing, single family, multifamily, age-restricted, and manufactured housing. And what it's telling us is by the year 2027, we will have an addition of 8,109 housing occupancies. So that's quite an increase over the next 10 years or so. The next page there is projected student population growth. So what does that do? What does that housing do? It obviously creates growth in our student population. And what does that look like for Goose Creek? This slide will tell you specifically approximately 700 elementary students, 375 junior school, 275. All of those are north of I-10, and then the remaining students, 700, 400, and 500, are scheduled to be on the south side of I-10. Projected to be. So we're looking at the elementary projected population growth. There's a couple of things I want to point out on this slide. We show 700 students north of I-10 and 700 students south of I-10. So you would think it could be an even distribution. However, if you look at where our campuses are located, we only have 3 to 4 campuses on the north side of I-10, and the remainder of those campuses are all on the south side of I-10. So the issue there would be distributing those students evenly. And I'd also like to point out, you can see in your slides where it says Banuelos, Clark, and then kind of there in the center by Garth Road, those items there marked in red are the highest growth projections, and that's due to development that's already scheduled to occur in those areas. This next slide has quite a bit of information. And this is regarding our elementaries. I'm going to scroll this up a little bit higher so we can take a look down here. Let me explain this one a little bit further. The left column of numbers is our capacity. So what exactly is our capacity? It's the amount of seats that we have for students to fit into our campuses. Those are the capacities for all of our campuses. The following column is current. That's our enrollment, our student enrollment. How many students are currently enrolled there? And actually this was as of 2017. So it's not, and it shows 2018 there is the third column. Those are projections, and I don't believe we have those numbers yet. Registration is ongoing. So one of the other things that I'd like to discuss is we have capacity numbers, as I mentioned, the seats that students fit in. However, the district's goal is never to be at 100% capacity. We'd like to stay about 90%. So why would that be? One of the reasons is because it allows for student transfers within the district. That's one of the reasons. People move from the north side of town to the south side and vice versa. Special programs. There are changes sometimes in education that require us to, for example, build a lab. And if there's not room for that, we can't accommodate those TEACS programs. And so it gives us a little bit of wiggle room to do that, to have pull-out space for students, to have tutoring within the campus. Those programs are all built in to our new campuses, but when we start putting more students in these campuses, we don't allow for that fluctuation to happen within the district. And so you'll see that highlighted column for 2020. I've highlighted this column just to emphasize this is the earliest, if we went out for a bond soon, as in November, this is the earliest that we could have an elementary number 17 constructed by. And if you look at that bottom number, our capacity is at 11,825. That's amount of seats. So that would already mean that we're over capacity. And that's actually over the capacity of the amount of seats, not even leaving that 10% buffer for us. Another thing I forgot to mention was that's when our portables come in, right? We'll have to address that and bring those portables in. Currently we have about 60 plus portables in the district right now. So let's take a look at the growth for the junior school. Highlands area has a projected growth of about 250 students. Gentry the same. Baytown at about 200, and Horseman at about 100. Now moving over to those enrollment projections, I've highlighted column 2021 there. That's the earliest that we can have junior school number 6 online by. And we have the same situation there, where we would already be over capacity. Technically, we're probably already over capacity if we want to leave that 10% buffer for ourselves. And then the last item are the high schools. This one we've done okay, even though we've actually added quite a few seats for the high school. The 3 major high schools are listed there. And on the next page, 2020 is the earliest that we could have Stewart Career Tech High School Phase 2 online by. And you'll see the cross-section where it says Stewart Career Tech. That's to apply for that many students, for 650 students by 2020. That's one of our listed urgent projects by that date. And I believe that is it for the demographic update. I am not a demographer. I've spent quite some time trying to interpret this document. We've had an expert come and explain this to us a couple of different times. So I can take any questions regarding this document and hopefully I'll be able to answer them. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned portables. I know when I was on the board, it was always, it seemed quite expensive to move portables around town. What's it cost to move a portable, say, inside the city limits?
It ranges. I will say that on the low side, it's about $60,000. That's not just to move it. It's to move it and to outfit it. Right.
Tear it down, put it up somewhere else, turn the key.
On the low side would be about $60,000 per portable. And so I'm being told I think we have more portables than what I mentioned earlier. And I think currently some are in pretty bad shape. We're considering selling those as well. Any other questions about the demographics? Yes, sir.
So on the career tech, student career tech, so it's showing that currently there's 74 students?
That was the enrollment as of 2017.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Projecting 200 for this year, projecting 650, which is what if the bond passes to expand it, you'd be expanding it to 650.
Correct. That is correct.
And then a year later, after it opens, it's going to be 250 short.
That is because we also have Stewart Career Phase 2A. It's a separate project that we kind of want to align with it, and it's for the addition of two new academies, some buildings that don't currently exist on the campus as well.
There are two academies that are there that were two programs that did not become part of the high school because we didn't have enough space for students for those, so we continued busing those until we had the facility to expand.
Okay. If there aren't any more questions, we'll go right into the next document. Yes, sir.
Just a comment about the enrollment at Stewart Career Tech. The 74 freshmen are always there today. This coming year, there'll be freshmen and sophomores there. In 19, there'll be freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. In 20, there'll be all four grades. That's why it's a small number this year.
Thank you, Carl. Good point. So let's take a look at what the critical projects timeline looks like. It's hard to see on the screen, but you should have a large handout in front of you. So because the May 2018 bond failed, what has happened since then is that we were expecting to stagger some of these, the start of some of these projects, and we've not been able to do that. And so in looking at a critical timeline, these projects that are listed here, we're needing to get started on them as soon as possible. And so that's why they're all at the same start time. And you'll see projected out how long those projects are lasting. We've not done a timeline for all of the projects that are on the other sheet that we're going to review, but these were just some that I'd like to point out to you. So another item about this document, if you notice across the top, we have a November 2018, May 2019. So those markers, those lines, those vertical lines that are there are kind of showing you where we're at with our project timeline if they begin at this time. So if we want to assume that we're starting at a later time, depending on when a bond would pass, you would just take that bar graph and move it down towards the end for that amount of months. Another very important item that I want to mention is, if you see on top of the May 2019 line, and then from then on, you'll see some percentages there at the top. 6 to 8%, 7.5 to 10, 9 to 12. Those percentages are as of this date, as of today, technically as of May of this year. And they are the projections from the Gulf Coast chapter, associated contractors, general contractors. That is the average amount of inflation for construction cost. So you'll notice that that's something that we'll have to take into consideration. If we postpone a bond to a future time, we'll have to recalculate those construction costs and apply those inflation rates to those as well. So it will affect those, the bottom line on that. Do I have any questions? Yes, sir.
So on some of these, like elementary 17, sand center replacement, junior school number 6, if they were postponed into a May bond, that would push them back opening the whole school year.
Correct. Correct. That is correct. Any other questions on this document? All right, let's jump right into our critical projects list. So a question was also asked last time, what does the district, what does administration feel are the critical items? The facilities group has gone in and we've evaluated most of the major projects and some of the upgrades and renovations. The technology and specialty projects, we've reached out to all of those department heads and asked them to share with us what are their most critical items that they would like to see going on soon. And so this is what you're seeing, the comprehensive list of all of those items. I want to walk through a couple of the major projects in the first section. If you noticed, Stewart Career Tech High School, we've got that as an all-in number. We've got to get moving on that. And I'd like to clarify, that number is for construction because we're currently in design. If you look back at the project timeline, we had a bond reimbursement resolution. Margie, do you remember when that resolution was done? I'm not exactly sure. But we did it for design only because we knew we were so tight on our timeline, we had to get started with at least the design. So our documents are going to be ready to go and just waiting for a bond to pass for those funds for construction to hit the ground running with that. The CTE lab and the construction lab. Now those are a little bit smaller projects, but they're critical because they're necessary because of Stewart Career Tech High School Phase 2. Some of those programs are moving and being rearranged from Stewart Career Tech over to these other campuses. So we've got to do those, remodel those projects and those buildings so that we can make room to do the complete renovation over at the Stewart campus. So those are tied together. And then of course we have the special ed center and curriculum and instruction relocation. We've left that number all in. We all know, we've heard our time is limited at San Jacinto Mall, and so we'd like to go ahead and take care of that. And then the last three on major projects, San Jacinto replacement, junior school number 6, and elementary number 17. We were asked to come up with this list. What's critical? What is the minimum amount we can do that's critical? And what we've done is we've taken an amount for the design only to get us going, just like we've done with Stewart, to get that project rolling and not miss on that deadline for those projects. So if we were to do just the design and approve that now, we would be in the best scenario that we could be.
What's the timeline for design? How long does that take?
It depends on the project. A new school, it could be 6 months or so for the design for it.
So does this timeline figure in, back to the project's timeline, does that figure that we're going to spend 6 months on design?
Yes.
There would be another bond passed?
Correct. Correct. It's making an assumption that we would pass a bond in November of 2018 based on this critical item list.
But then you don't have funds to construct them. So when
Correct.
When does it assume that you'll have funds to construct?
It would have to be next year. Really, May would be ideal. Pushing it back out to November of 2019, we would be a little bit in trouble. It would make these timelines longer.
Why wouldn't we just include the funds to construct those critical schools here in this fall?
We could, and I'd be glad to do that. We were trying to see what's the lowest amount that we would come up with on this list But yeah, definitely, we could include the entire amount for those projects.
Those projects are something I don't think anybody in this room would contend we don't need. I think we all say we need those.
Okay.
Those. And the idea wasn't to drive the cost down. It's what do we need, and let's do the projects we need, and then people don't test. So I would, me personally, I would say put the money in there. That way we're not dependent on passing another bond for this effort to be fruitful.
And see, we'd be happy to do that. I'm glad to hear that.
I would agree.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What's the cost of the 3 schools that we want to build total? Do you know?
$102 million.
54 to junior school and
26 and 24. Mm-hmm. All right. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
So these schools, are they going to be junior highs and elementaries? Are they going to be a different design than what we already have?
Our goal is to have our current design that we've been using. It saves a little bit of money that way and a little bit of time. If we were to say to an architect we want a brand new design on everything, that takes a little bit longer.
So if we're building schools like we've already built, why are we paying $6 million for design?
$6 million is, I'm sorry, I was not clear. I said design in a general term. I should have put soft costs on there. It's design, it's engineering fees, it's site preparation, utilities preparing for that. It's a lot of other things. It's permitting. There's a lot more that goes into it than just design, and I should have been clear about that.
So why would, again, I'm with the other folks that
Sure.
stated that that's throwing money away if you're not going to put money in there to build the school. But to put money in there for all these utilities and all this other stuff without having money to build a school, that's a waste.
Well, we would hope to eventually build the school.
But what if it doesn't happen?
That's correct. That is a risk that would happen if we split the cost of these campuses. That's correct. Okay.
Do we own the land for another elementary and junior high?
Yes, we do. We own the land for elementary number 17, and I believe we just purchased the land for junior school number 6. Okay, moving on to specialties. These were the items that, when we reached out to these directors, were on their critical list items. I can try to answer questions about those as best as possible. I would like to point out 2 items on this section, and actually 3. Item number S5, athletic field lighting replacement. That is one where, if you recall, our director of maintenance spoke to us back in the first meeting. That lighting is, we can't find those lights. We have got to replace that. And when I created this list, some of the criteria was, how do these projects not happening affect students? And so, obviously, if there's not lighting in the athletic fields, they can't play sports there, or they'll have to go to a different campus to play their sports. Star Wars Stadium. I want to point out that number that's budgeted there, it's not the entire number as we had before. The other number we had was for some renovations to the stadium itself. This number is strictly for parking lot, to redo the parking lot and add some much needed lighting to that parking lot. And then one of the most important things that we heard from you last week was security upgrades. I think we met earlier this week with our chief of police, or deputy superintendent, and discussed at minimum what can we do to provide a security package in this bond for our campuses. And the number one concern was additional video cameras. We'd like to have more than what we have now. so that we can see better everywhere across the campus, out inside and outside of the campus. And so that's a brand new line item that you have not seen before for $650,000. I will say that we've not had time to fully vet other options for security, and that would be something that we would look into a future bond if we were to split it up into two bonds, a critical bond and a follow-up bond. I think there's some investigations on different programs that they'd like to take a look at. We also talked about motion sensors at certain campuses. So those are things that are on deck for us to look at in the future.
So you had, this is additional cameras?
Correct.
Not the replacement. So you had $1.2 million for replacing the current cameras.
Correct.
That need to be replaced. So you're not going to do that now. You're just going to add $600,000 to add more cameras. So what are you going to do with the cameras that you're not replacing that aren't going to be good for 4 years?
I cannot respond to that question. I think what I can say is that those cameras at least exist and they're functional. I think maybe Matt can help me a little bit with those cameras. They're there and they're functional. These would be additional.
The ones that we have listed for security, those are additionals. The ones that Matt have up under his budget will be the replacements.
And how old are those cameras that you're replacing or want to replace? It's not the current.
Matt,
Let me get that all of that for you.
I think she had a question on that.
Yes, ma'am.
So why are we adding more cameras if last time we pointed out that we don't even have anybody watching the cameras? What's the point of the cameras?
That would be something that the district would have to sit down and address, is how to monitor those cameras. And yes, you're correct, it would be difficult to monitor all cameras at the same time. I think that was the consensus last time, but we'd have to figure out how to do that.
Can someone in the room tell us how the cameras are being used currently? I guess would be another way of saying that.
Yes.
Yes. At present, what we're using cameras mainly for right now is for theft control. If there is a theft, then we go back and look at the cameras and find out what theft is occurring. If we have trouble on the campus, we can monitor those campuses. If we get a 911 call, we can punch up that campus and look at the cameras and see what's going on as our units are going to that campus. And we can tell, we have eyes in the sky, we call them, and we can find out where that trouble is. If we have a bad guy in the building, we can say we have an intruder on hallway W100, and the police can go to that hallway. So we can tell them where the bad guy is, or we can track the person throughout the building.
How many cameras does $650,000 pass?
I think we said, Chief, was it 15 additional cameras at every elementary school?
I mean,
No, 10, I'm sorry, 10 additional cameras at every elementary school, 15 at the junior schools, and 20 at the high schools.
so
Additional cameras.
What's the total number of cameras they're going to get $1,000? I mean, 45 cameras?
No, it's every elementary, 200 and something. We've got 16 elementary campuses, 5 junior schools, and we did it for the 3 major high schools right now.
So we're going to do that, but we're not doing anything to increase the monitoring that we know of yet, although staff can't be paying the bond.
Right, correct.
Not doing anything to increase the monitoring. So in reality, these really aren't going to be not going to stop a threat from occurring. They're kind of after the fact while it's ongoing, correct?
I would assume so if no one's monitoring them live, correct.
Again, additional manpower is something that we have, that we will be addressing with administration, will be addressing and taking to the board, but that's something that'll be coming at a later date.
Angela, you have a question?
I just kind of want to clarify something. Goose Memorial came online in 2013, right? Was it 2013 school year?
No, 2008.
Oh, 2008?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Because I was just curious if we knew that the lighting was going to be obsolete in our newest high school, we might not have known in 2008.
Yeah.
Most of the security cameras were installed 2015 timeframe is when we started those projects. So, depending on, 5 years would be early, that was my assumption, maybe 2020. I'm guessing more than 7-year life cycle of the current cameras would have pushed into 2022. So that's why I had the replacement of security cameras for priority 3 further back in the bond, and I did have some priority 1 current.
Mr. Russell, you had another comment?
In response to, or regards to the security cameras that are existing, why are we spending bond money, or want to spend bond money on maintenance?
Well, those aren't considered maintenance items. It would be a capital improvement to the campus. Oh, you're talking about the camera replacement?
Camera replacement. Those are maintenance items.
I'm not sure I can answer that. And we have discussed that at length here in this group. Margie, would you like to?
Most capital items that are renewed, and even on 5-year life cycles, are funded with bonds. There's just simply not adequate funds in the operating funds to pay for. I mean, you can consider everything that's on a 5-year life a maintenance item. There's just no way you can cover it all. So typically, districts have put these types of items in the bond, and as I talked about last time about the variable rate bonds, we just refinanced first, whatever day that was this week, some of our variable rate debt. We got a very good rate. We got a 1.95 on that, and you can't go get a lease or any other kind of funding or financing for those kind of low rates. So it is the cheapest money, if you will, the least expensive way to finance some of the major maintenance. And I can tell you right now, at the Ford ISD, in their bonds, they pay for all of their technical trades. They pay for their licensed plumbers, their licensed all the licensed technical staff that work to just maintain the building. They're all paid for out of the bonds. And literally, a lot of the maintenance staff their continued livelihood is based on selling the new bonds. So it's amazing what people pay for with this, which I would support that. That was in place when I got here. But to pay for assets that have a useful life of 5 years, that take these and the ones we've already bought, I don't know how much we've already got invested in cameras. We don't have $2 or $3 million every 5 years to pay for this. And then you're talking about there's the computer to pay for that. We are funding as we go and paying as we go as many assets as we possibly have in excess fund balance. But that's the only funding the district has to put towards those type of
So are these cameras failing, or are we looking at spending the money to replace cameras that have a quote life expectancy?
This isn't replacing cameras on this side.
No, but the other.
Right, and that's
but this will be part of the same thing.
Yeah, but it's definitely part of the discussion that we should be having in the next phase of this process of, how do we want to approach the next bond and all those other projects that failed through the May 2018 bond election. But if they're just asking for additional cameras on that one, I see that as a good idea here. But yeah, definitely.
I do too.
Definitely.
But if we're looking at 5 years on the cameras, we're buying the wrong cameras.
Yeah, no, I agree on.
If we can't afford to maintain what we got, we shouldn't be adding more.
Yeah, I agree with you on the replacement stuff, which is why I've been waiting for us to get to the technology section.
I'm going to make you wait a little bit longer on that one. I'm going to jump right into the upgrades and renovations, which is a little bit more my wheelhouse there. Sure, absolutely.
On the reimbursement resolution, 27 new buses. Is that for the time range?
So
I'm not sure exactly what that was for,
some of those are due for our bus replacement, just wear and tear on old buses being replaced, and some of it is for bus software and for.
He's asking about the resolution, not the bus line item and the equipment line item.
I'm good with S2 for expansion.
Oh, okay.
Because of growth. I'm asking about
I believe it is, sir. I believe it is, but I can't confirm that. Is that accurate, Margie? Okay. And Also, I don't want to skip over something else that you'll see that's new on here. Item S4, reimbursement resolutions. I'd like to point out that that item has changed the last time, from the last time you saw that. I believe administration is planning to do reimbursing resolutions this coming week for the purchase of 2 new properties. One would be for elementary number 18, and the other is a property with the purpose of repurposing, I believe.
Well, are you skipping the technology or you going to come back to it?
Yes, I'm skipping the technology. I'm going down to the bottom and then I'll let Matt take over the technology portion. If we go down to R1, I've got Lee Auditorium renovation. I think that's a pretty easy one to understand. It is right now completely scaffolded in. We've removed the ceiling. We've got a little bit of work left to do there. And we're considering right now replacing the ceiling with a temporary ceiling, because what it looks like now is that that campus will be without a ceiling for approximately 2 years, based on getting a design going and a complete renovation. So we don't want to leave that campus without a ceiling. The acoustics are going to be terrible in that building, and we'd like to hurry up and get that one renovated for them. Yes?
The roof in Lee High School, exactly how old is that section of the building? Do you know?
The auditorium?
The auditorium, yes.
1960, late 60s, I believe.
So is there any insulation that would be hazardous?
No, there are no hazardous materials in that building. Everything has been removed. So it's safe. It's safer now because now we've removed the failing ceiling that was installed.
What's the cost going to be for the temporary ceiling?
Approximately $120,000. Okay, and then we'll move on to items R2, R3, and R4, roof replacement, MEP 1, and plumbing upgrade. All of those are for Sterling High School. These are major renovations to this campus, and if you look back at the project timeline, unfortunately some of this work has to only be done in the summer. We can't turn on the air conditioning throughout the year. So that one pushes that one off further. And if we push this project off for a later time to start at a later time, that just means we're pushing it down the road to next summer and then the next summer. There is some work that we can do on the interior. We plan to, we need to do some plumbing work and all of the restrooms on the inside. Some of that may be able to take place throughout the school year. We can section off parts of the building or close down a particular bathroom and work. It's not ideal. It creates noise. We have to work after school and those type of things. Makes my guys have a lot of long nights and long weekends as well. And then that drives cost as well when crews are out there working night projects.
Are your people off on the holidays too, or do they work?
We're off on the holidays, and I say that because the guys are there 24/7. Christmas, we work Christmas, we worked New Year. It doesn't matter if we have a concrete pour, we have to be there, and we follow the schedule. Whatever the schedule is, we have someone working.
Our department doesn't get off the week at Easter or the week 2 weeks of Christmas, nor the 2.5 months in the summer. We're 260-day employees, so we're there pretty much all the time. And the work really dictates our schedule more than our schedule. We have to be there to oversee and supervise and manage these projects, regardless of what the district's hours and holidays are.
And vacations are also scheduled around those. Okay, yes?
The HVAC system is talking here, you know, is there a lot of maintenance failures? What is the reason for replacing the whole system? Just because it's outdated but it still works, or is it failing?
There's a couple of reasons. It is antiquated. The system that is there, the ductwork that is there, is not what we are installing in our new facilities. However, it does work. They do have maintenance calls on this, but more than anything, I think it's also become more work orders for those items that are in the facility, and also the work orders for the items, and it's an energy issue. There's also no building control systems for that campus. That means it's just either on or it's off. Calls to that have to go, we have to respond to them on site. You can't control it. So it's either going to be too hot or too cold. I've heard some people say it's too cold in there because we can't control the temperature in that building. And so that is also costing, it's one of our larger campuses and it's costing us a lot of money in utilities.
It's a two-pipe system, isn't it, the hot and the cold?
Yes, and it mixes in, I don't even know if any of our other campuses have them. They're mixing boxes to get the temperature correct, and it's just not, it's not a good system. And then we have MAP project number 2, and you see that's replacing some units over at De Zavala, Harlem, and Highlands Elementary. And then the last item there on the upgrades and renovations is the MDF conditioned air. Due to upgrading our school networks and having to create MDF rooms out of old storage rooms or closets, they weren't designed to cool that area, and it's overheating our networks, and so we're having to go back and retrofit and make sure that there's not a failure at those campuses, and that's what that project is about. Any questions about any of the renovations? Okay, I'm going to hand this over to Matt, and he can further explain the technology portion.
All right, so on technology, I wasn't sure, right, with critical, right? So I took all my priority ones and really wanted to just present them to you guys, and you can give me feedback on whether you think it's critical or not. Most of these items, the computers were replaced even in the 2014 year. So they are going to reach their 5-year life expectancy. So that's why you see these items on this list. The first teacher computers were purchased in December of 2013. Those were the elementary teachers, and then we replaced a lot of the rest of them during the summer 2014. The interactive whiteboards, projectors, those were first installed in the summer of 2014. The third item is an add item, which we currently do not have, and so we debated this amongst my team. We feel that those teachers don't have anything, right? So they're missing out, and so that's why we saw this as a critical thing. The other teachers have the carts in the classrooms, they have access. These sets of teachers do not. I can see it both ways. We don't have it, we don't need it, or they don't have it, yes, they do need it. So kind of leave that up to your guys' feedback on that. And then the T4 is replace elementary and junior high mobile devices. We started replacing the 7th grade social studies in 2013, 8th grade was in 2014, and then all the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade ELA was in 2015. Computer labs were replaced in 2019. Library technology, the computers in there were in 2019. Administrative computer replacements were in 2014. Sorry, these are all 2014, so that's why I'm projecting needed to be replaced in 2019. And then the network cabling, that was pushed from the 2013 bond, wasn't included, and put it in this item as well. One thing that's kind of different, we kind of had a structure, 94 bond, right, 99 bond, 2005 bond, and during those times, we would replace computers over the 5-year cycle. When we went from 2005 to 2013, that was an 8-year gap, and so that's why you see we did a large replacement in 2014. We came in and just swiped in and replaced everything because they were so old. So that kind of threw us off in having a staging where I can only replace
you know, I could get that number lower if we still had that staging, but we didn't have that anymore. So, questions?
You're replacing these because of what you have doesn't work, or you're replacing these because you want new stuff?
We're replacing because of the life cycle estimate is that they're going to be 5-year replacement. They're due for.
They're working now.
They're working now. Are they going to work in 6 months, a year, 2 years? When is the next? Right.
I think on a lot of these items, I definitely give you the network cable replacement. We talked about that when we did the exercise. And one of the ideas, you know, whenever I was talking about the critical items, is some of the least contentious, easiest to sell to the community. You know, build a school, that's a no-brainer. I think there's so much debate and discussion about how we do some of these projects that would really benefit from the bond committee, committee type meetings that we were talking about doing. You know, just the other week in your presentation, you said that you weren't going to replace all of the projectors in one shot. Right. You buy, say, 200 of them and put them on the shelf, and then you need to replace them. So I think that, you know, say, you know, put all of the projectors onto potential bond in November, you know, couldn't that wait until May or next November?
And that's what I didn't know, right? So when is the next one, right? So if it doesn't pass in November, or if it does, the critical does, and we don't include the computer replacements, then is the next one 2 years out? So that now computers are 7 years old when they're due to replace. You're going to have a lot more failures and have issues with them than I do now.
I think it's an easier sell on the buildings, and I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to happen surrounding how we do the technology side of it. You know, we've talked about the capital outlay and the enterprise zone funds and stuff like that. There is more money coming into the district, and you know, right now we're able to spend it on 27 new buses because we want to change the time of schools. So I think that there's so much more to talk about there that I would be good with the network cabling replacement, because I see that as a big upgrade to something that just isn't up to par in certain campuses versus other campuses. But I don't think that 6 months or a year delay on some of these technology items is going to be a critical failure for the students. That's my opinion.
I disagree. I think you have to make a decision in this district whether you're going to have technology for your children or not going to have technology for your children. The problem with this whole process tonight is that we're going upon the contingent that you're going to have another bond next year. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't believe you're going to pass a bond this year and turn around and pass another bond next year. Good luck if that happens. But let's just assume that happens. Matt has to have some lead time for the purpose of his technology equipment. Just the way you finance the technology, you're adding and replacing some wireless devices in your budget, but you're not replacing your access point. That's kind of pointless. So if you do technology as a maintenance item and replace it as it goes out, there's going to be a lag time, which means some children are not going to have the technology. So y'all decide whose kid in this room doesn't have that technology and let me know. Because someone's going to end up without the technology. So you got to provide it across the board for all the students. The only way you can do that is to finance it across the board and purchase those technology upgrades. The other issue is you can't upgrade your technology level by doing maintenance and replacing things as they go out. It doesn't work that way in the technology field. I wish it did. I have a lot of clients that would be able to have it. It just doesn't work. At some level, technology changes and you have to upgrade to the level of technology that goes in. That's why they're trying to change the video distribution center. It's one of the reasons they wanted to change the cameras that came out of the deal. You just replace the camera when it goes out now, you're replacing the same technology you have now that won't be the technology 4 years from now. So the district has to decide, or you have to decide, you're going to support technology for your kids, you're not going to support technology for your kids. If you're not going to support it, don't buy the pass.
Just want to make a clarification. Mr. Beard, you mentioned that this was contingent upon a future bond. You're correct. This was just a scenario that someone discussed last time. Let's take a look at what would be urgent and then what would be a follow-up bond. So it's just one scenario. And then we said we could look at a more comprehensive bond at a future date.
Part of the problem is that some of this stuff was proposed in 2013 was taken out of bond, significant budget. And all we did was reduce it to $10 million over $146 million mini bond, if you want to call it, the budget process is today. And all you're doing is delaying the technology costs, which will more than likely will have some increase.
Mr. Flood, I have a question. I need some help understanding. If you're replacing computers and you don't replace them, and I just need to clarify, I'm not, here to support one or the other, y'all know who I am, and I have a question. If, as a teacher, I have a computer that went out, and my computer's a lot older than, and I understand what you're saying, if it's broken, we're able to fix it. But the problem is that my computer finally went out, and I spent 3/4 of this year without a computer with a little rolling, I have more technology on my phone. My phone's faster than what they gave me because there weren't any computers. So my only question is that I'm sure that the person that came and fixed my computer probably at the end of the day, with the amount of times they came out, probably cost a lot more than they just buying me a computer. And I know that we're tied in because of contracts. We have to buy from this guy and not from this guy. If Augustine goes and buys a computer, I'm not going to pay $1,200, obviously. But my question is part of this because the technology that's coming in, and I've got no ulterior motive. I'm just straight up asking as somebody who's in this too. If we don't buy it and replace it when it needs to be replaced, I seem to think that at some point it's going to be more expensive to keep fixing something that starts breaking down. Maybe for my case, it was a video part. It might be this, it might be that. And it was a $20 part that the district couldn't get hold of. And not this district.
Right.
And that's my question.
Yeah, of course, right. So your maintenance cost is going to start going up because you're going to have more grade errors, right? Parts are going to start failing over time. The other issue that you've got to look at is the security patches and updates to protect, right, the computer. At some point, they're going to stop releasing those updates for that age of computer, and will I be able to upgrade and maintain security on those up to the standard of today, right? Of maintaining the latest drivers and OS patches and all that kind of stuff. So you definitely run into those two issues on running older computers. But yes, you're going to have failures, spam failures, monitor failures, whatever. And we'll do our best to maintain it. We do it all year long. I mean, it's something we do now. It's just as they get older, we're going to have more issues. And so the goal is to go, okay, they've lived their life cycle. We've got 5 years out of the computer. It's time to replace it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm also a classroom teacher, and I teach third grade. And sometimes we have to be very creative with what we have to share because we don't have enough. And now if it breaks down and we don't have it, even less. So we need computers in the classroom.
Right, and I can tell you from what we did in the 2013 bond, we took the teachers, whatever their part of their classroom was, and we put that interactive whiteboard right there front and center. And we put their laptop right there to try to force the teachers to utilize the technology. And if we don't replace those laptops and the equipment that goes with it, they're going to have to stop using it and figure out other ways. We're going back in time. Yes?
I'd also like to add, our state puts a lot of restrictions on what we have to do. So when I just talk about testing and the computer labs that he has to maintain, every English language learner in the district must take their test online. And they now have to speak into it and submit that to the state through the internet. They've got to do the listening piece. Any child with a disability that needs to take a test with accommodations, the only way they can take a test is online, which means they have to have the ability to hear it, the screen has to be able to move with it. So because that's how we obtain our accountability, our students have to be able to practice They have to be able to get onto a system, and what we don't want to have happen to our most needy students is it kicks them out, it turns off. We've got to move them and log them into another unit. So when I look at the technology and I think of the mandates that we have to meet the needs of our students, from the state is coming through technology. And they have to be able to run the programs that the state provides us to have access to those assessments. So some of those older computers, we can't upload the software that we need to be able to assess our students. So I just wanted to put that thought in mind. It's not just for fun, it's not just for games. We actually use those instructionally to prepare our students.
I'm going to pass the baton back over to Dr. Price.
Okay. So we're at the moving forward part. Now, first of all, I want to thank you for your contributions for all of these meetings, for attending all these meetings. We've heard your concerns about the bond planning process. We've heard that you want us to go back to look at the successful planning processes that we had in the 2013 bond. And we're going to look at those. But we have to clarify one thing, because we were looking at splitting the bond up for critical things and looking at a bond this year and then possibly one next year. But we need to know, get a little clarity on that. Do we want to move forward with that? Because we've got to take this back to the board. So we need to know if we want to move in that direction, or if we want to just take our information back to the board and see which direction the board wants us to go in. So we need some information from you all now. And so we need you to throw out some information to us now so we can have a direction or some directions to take back to the board.
What is the deadline for, I believe sometime in August?
August 20th.
August 20th. For a November election.
To call for an election is August 20th.
For November, yes.
All right, so everything here is 157 million.
If we do 3 schools, it would be 258.
258 if we do 2 schools, okay.
So, yes ma'am.
I hate to speak out loud in front of people, but I think there's something, I've only attended the last 2 meetings, but I think there's something that hasn't been addressed about part of the reason the bond failed. I think part of the reason the bond failed was because people were angry. People were angry about the whole mega school deal. People who got rezoned were angry because they got rezoned. I think that people were really angry and are still angry about the start time change. So, I mean, and that's not going to go away. We're just now dealing with how we're going to take care of our kids and with the start time change. So I think that needs to be addressed as well. Because people were angry, and people are still going to be angry. And so people were voting with their heart instead of with their head in certain degrees. Though I do think the bond was what they were to be.
Can I ask you a question? Do you feel that that sentiment would lead to another failure?
I'm afraid of that, yes. If we do one quickly in November, I'm afraid that that bond will fail as well. And then it will be like
2 in a row.
Yes. I think we don't need to hurry. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think we need to hurry. I think the board needs to work on its public relations skills and then let's go through the process like we did in 13. I was on that committee in 13. And let's get a real bond, a bond that covers all of our needs. And then maybe people won't be so mad. Because people are really mad.
Thank you. We will take that to the board as well.
Just a quick question. This is the first time I've been on this type of the bond committee.
My question is, the numbers that you have for each line item, how are they determined? Do you have bids from 2, 3 different entities that comes in and these are average numbers? Or how is that number put on this?
I can try to answer that question as best as possible. It varies per project. I can tell you, for example, the camera project that we just spoke about, additional cameras. Matt kind of has a good idea of the price of each individual camera, and we've added some for the infrastructure to connect those cameras. Right now, there's nowhere, right? So to wire them to that campus and connect them. So that's a better estimate, I would say. The other projects, new construction, is based off of square footage. We take the square footage and do a cost per square footage on that construction. But there's so many other factors. Do we own the land already, or don't we own the land? What type of infrastructure are we foreseeing to happen there? Is it a school that's already been designed? That fee for their architect may be less than one for a junior high, where we may not already have a design for a junior high. So there's a lot of different factors for that.
Well, for instance, on your M1, you got 10,750,000, and you're showing 36,000 square feet. That's $300 roughly, $298 a square foot.
So I want to
the average amount.
I want to clarify something, because I mentioned earlier this number is an all-in number. It's the soft cost, it's the upfront cost, it's the permitting, all of that. Square foot cost is never calculated using soft cost. It's only calculated using construction cost. And so it's not accurate to take this total number and say that it's divided by the square footage. It's just not accurate, and that's not how it's typically done. Carl, you had a comment to add?
My comment on N1 is, we're in the design stages, and we're almost finished with the design, and we've had a construction company working with the architect to make constructability easier. And they've produced estimates at different stages of the design, at like 50% and 75%, and we're close to 100%. And this number is based on the 75% number.
However, all of our other projects have not been designed, so we're not at that stage with our other projects.
This is a better number in my mind.
Correct.
The dollar
You're
per
right.
square foot number for the junior high and the elementary schools, although those dollars per square foot are numbers that have been produced by, as Brenda said, a local organization, a Houston organization that's part of a national organization that produces numbers and produces numbers. You're part of that. Produces numbers every year and says, here's what it costs per square foot a range for an elementary school, for a junior high school, and for a high school.
And they don't just take every construction. They take school construction. So they look at all of the school construction across the Houston area. New construction, used construction, and those numbers, I think the trend, they've been pretty accurate on their trends recently. Mr. Parent, you had a comment?
Well, I just wanted to address the bond failure. Yes, people were angry, but there was also a very, intensive effort on the part of some people to convince people to vote no on the bond. There was a much larger turnout on this bond election than there were in previous bond elections, and that's because people were going door to door, talking to people, convincing them to vote no, because it was in our opinion, it was bloated, overloaded, not really well thought through, not presented well enough. And we've gone through a lot of that in these meetings of why we think that the bond failed. So yes, people were angry. I don't think that being angry at the district turned people out to vote. They didn't just say, oh, the district's having an election, I'm going to go vote because they changed the start times. It may have been easier to convert that person into a no voter because they were angry at the district. But one of the ideas behind asking about doing a November bond election is, we know that there's growth in the district and that we need to build schools. And the people that said, we're against this bond, we weren't against building schools. There were things in the bond that we were against, like the multi-purpose center and some of the technology items. We still don't think that should necessarily be financed the way that it is. There's obviously disagreements about that. But, we know there's growth. We know we need to build schools. We know that there's things that need to get done. And what we asked was, you know, how does the timeline get affected if we do one in this November versus next May versus next November? And that's why Brenda presented the demographic survey, and it shows that if we don't get started on some of these projects sooner, then we're not going to have enough seats in classrooms, which is going to turn into more portables or deficiencies or whatever for, you know, our capacity at our schools. So that's why you know, we really want to whittle this down to projects that we believe people can agree on, that there's not a contentious item about how do we finance iPads. We don't want that to be a talking point in a bond election. We want the talking point to be, we need to start building this junior school, otherwise we're not going to have enough seats for kids whenever they build 2,000 new houses north of I-10. So, you know, I really think that, you know, some of this needs to come out. I think we need to add the funds for the schools to build them and not make it dependent on passing another bond. I'm okay with a lot of the stuff on here. You know, I think there's some give and take that we have to have through the process, but I think, you know, if we eliminate the ones that, you know, just make bad sound bites and make it harder to sell to certain people, that we can pass a bond that will make a positive impact for the students in the district and will get us to the point where we can open these schools in time for when kids need seats. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I think there's some stuff that we can whittle out. I'm not worried about the total number. You know, if we're in the 190 or 250 ballpark, I don't think that's an issue for the people that live here. But it's picking the right projects. And knowing that we'll have to follow up, go through some of those other projects that failed in May, but we need to have more discussions on them. We need more people involved. We need to go through that process of, you know, really digging into them. It's just, you know, we have 18 days before the board needs to call for a bond election. Otherwise, elementary number 17 and junior school number 6 may not open in time for when you need those seats.
I don't think the demographics necessarily support the fact that we're going to run out of seats for children in the next year and a half to 2 years if we don't pass a bond election this November. We have at least capacity in all the schools of at least 10%. We probably need a junior high in the near future. Whether we pass that now, we do in January. The junior high at the end of the day is going to be ready about the same time. I think you need to go back to the board. The board needs to go back to a pre-bond mode and readdress the total bond package, and then come back and sell that package like it has been done in the past, which you didn't do. And have a real bond one time, because I really doubt that you're going to be able to pass 2 bonds a year and a half or just not.
So, Mike, are you saying not to present a potential $258 million bond for November?
I'm sorry, do what?
Are you saying you're not in favor of a $258 million bond in November?
Not this current package it is, because you have other needs that need to be addressed, and I think you can come back and do a better job addressing the policy. I just don't think you're going to pass that bond in a November election this year. There's going to be a contentious election anyway, you know, outside the school district. It's going to be a contentious November election, national and statewide, and there's going to be a lot of issues going on. I think you need to go back to your homework and prepare a real bond, sell it, which did not happen this time, out in the community and bring it back in May, which still will allow sufficient time to do schools, and that's what needs to be decided in June.
Mike, what do you think needs to be added or taken out?
Well, I think you need to go back and look at your technology issues. I mean, you need to make.
The only thing that's missing out of this is technology. Is 14 million,
10 million.
Well, you have some other issues too. I mean, there's no doubt that we need a new field house. We don't need the field house that was proposed, but we need some type of new field house that needs replacement. The one over there is in sad shape. At some point in time, you got to sell it. You've got a couple of items. You got a phone replacement on here that's actually going to save the district money, and you're pulling it out. See how many items on here that's actually going to save the district money in replacing the phone system, but over the current cost.
The system is a different kind of system than you're thinking of.
Okay, we're gonna look at it like this. We're gonna take all this information back to the board. We're going to let them know that there is some thought that we should look at a possible mini bond totaling less than $250 with a possible follow-up bond, or we may look at a all-inclusive bond that may be a smaller bond than was presented.
Let me make a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Let's stop referring to a possible November bond as a mini bond, and let's refer to it as a critical items bond.
Critical item.
Okay? No matter what that number is.
Okay.
Because right now, I agree with the district's assessment, and I agree with the group saying, let's go to 3 schools, so that's $255 million. That ain't many.
But it's critical. You all brought that one to the last week, so I will go with the critical item bond. Okay.
And you know, in all honesty, about the temperament of the people voting, of all the discussions that I've participated in pre-May, the May election, I only heard one person use the word to say they were anti-bond. Only one. The majority of the people said, look, we're not anti-bond. We know we need this. So, I mean, the public is aware of the fact that we've got to have this. It was just the idea that it was rushed. There was not enough participation, especially in comparison to the huge committee that there was in 2013. And I think they felt rushed and pushed into a corner, and I think that's part of what causes the anger.
And it was so big.
Right, and so I think if we do come back with something reasonable, you know, 255, it's in reasonable limits with what we did, and we accomplished a lot in the 2013 bond, and I think the public is aware of that, with a few exceptions. And so I don't know that we can wait, and I think that at least this group has demonstrated that we're willing to put the work in to help make it happen. And we do have 3 weeks between now and the time that it has to go to the board for approval to put it on the ballot. So I think if we're willing to continue doing the work, that should be welcome and we should proceed with it, period.
First of all, let me say, if we do go to another committee and we start this bond project for like similar to 2013, these are the key people that need to be sitting on that committee right there. These are the people that voice concerns. We want to be on those committees. We want to be involved, and we want to be part of that transparency. I want to go and touch on Mr. Parent and Mike back here, 2 totally different viewpoints, but yet I agree with both. And let me tell you why. If we go for the word that we use, mini bond package, to me, what's presented here has a lot of what we call fluff. This is not mini. This is a pretty comprehensive bond. It's covering a lot of things. If, in my opinion, and they're both right, in my opinion, though, if we're going to look at replacing schools right away, that should be the only thing on there. Hard capital items as far as let's replace those schools. Everything else should be pushed forward to the next one, and let's do a very comprehensive part of it. But I agree, if we go after $250-something million this year, we're not going to do it next year. But if we address the community and say, and like Angela said, I was a no voter. Everyone knows I was a no voter, but I want to be a yes voter. I really do. And if you come to me and say, hey, we need to build schools, let's get that started, and let's back up and restart this process and really do a comprehensive committee, community input, not a transparent process, we're going to be on board in a heartbeat. But if we're going to go for something right now in this year, November, schools. Focus on the schools, start to finish everything with it. Everything else here, critical or not, I'm sorry, but replacing, Matt, I'm not picking on you, but, and this is just one example of everything on this page, but not picking on Matt, it's not critical that we replace every projector in every room of the school on the November ballot. So that's, to me, as a voter, that's not critical. Critical is let's get it in place and get going that, yes, we see the need for schools. We know building schools takes years, so let's get that started. So my thought is if we're going to go for a bond election in November, the only thing on there should be the construction of these schools. And let's push everything forward 6 months and start looking at that as a much more comprehensive and total bond package that should have come before the voters the first time. And that's my, and that's, you know, Mike and Thomas, y'all are both right on track. But my point is the middle of the road. Let's start building the schools. Let's have a very conservative number that addresses only the schools. If we add fluff to November, we can't add fluff in May because we've already addressed that. Now we're duplicating a bond. Let's focus on just get these schools going. And I'm willing to bet that will fly right through the voters. Voters that are mad about school start times, you cannot be mad about building a school for the students.
Right. And I'm going to add one other thing to that. Focusing on the schools is important. And when I read this list, it's okay. As a homeowner, we have to make decisions based on our budgets, right? And if somebody came to me and said, you need your roof repaired or you're going to end up having structural damage to your house, versus if you put in a low flush toilet, you can reduce your water bill a little bit. I'm going to replace the roof first and put up with that toilet. Okay? So it's things like that where we know that some of this stuff is prevention of a really big problem down the line. And so that roof replacement is part of that. And I think looking at it from that standpoint, because every homeowner in the district can relate to that. We all have to make those decisions every day ourselves.
The difference between the house and a commercial building
I understand that.
22,000 kids a day.
That's not my
Flushing
point.
toilets and all that.
I understand, but my point was that if we have to make choices, repairing the roof, replacing a roof where we could end up with structural damage is more important on that scale.
I don't disagree. You can't compare your house to a house.
So, what if you delayed the entire thing until next November? What is the negative impact?
It's taking these critical items and pushing them down to here.
Costs,
portables, possible rezoning. We've gone through it before and we've had to deal with it.
Not only possible rezoning, but once you do build, you're going to rezone again.
Yeah.
Within a couple of years, you're going to rezone again.
Yeah, for example, the junior school, and all the elementaries, you have to rezone to place those students. Where are they coming from to fill that campus? So.
The other thing that I want to add into what Angela said a while ago, I was a no voter as well, for many of the same reasons that she brought up. One of the biggest things for me was looking there, and there's so many things in here that say they're at their end of their life cycle. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Bring data, as a friend of mine always said, in God we trust, everybody else bring data. Show me why. The $30 million for Sterling High School repairs, but yet the air conditioning system works. It's just not working as good as it did with other schools. That's not the kind of mentality that you should be using to go out and spend $30 million in one school because something may not work for 2 more years. That's, show me maintenance, show me data that says this thing's falling apart and we've spent so many hundreds of thousands of dollars on it, we need to replace it.
So
not just say life cycle. Life cycle is
unfortunately, this committee has kind of been on a fast track. And our last committee, they viewed those type of items, and actually I think we viewed it recently in another committee, which was long-range planning, where we brought those work orders to show what the campuses were spending per year on these different systems.
But you didn't put that data out to the voters to help us understand why this is important that it's in here, not just because it's at the end of its life cycle. That means nothing.
Good point.
Dr. Price, just to clarify.
Hold on just a second.
Well, I'm just going to say that I think it's almost hit on what the true need for this bond is. We can all look at this data, but until someone stops and tells the public, if we don't replace the lights at the stadiums with LEDs, they're going to go out, there are no replacement parts, and the stadiums will be dark. Number 2, Matt has very clearly stated some of our equipment is at the end of its lifetime. If we don't pass a bond so that that equipment can be ready when it does go out, we're going to have teachers and children, especially our special needs children, who are not going to be able to pass the tests they need because they don't have the equipment to practice on. I don't think anybody will be against the bond if it's broken down into exactly what the need is and why. Just putting out, this is our bond, is not going to pass. Everyone in this room is on the same page. The people in this town, I think these are the only people in this town right now who truly understand the whys. And until we can impart that information, however we do it, Beth, I love you, wherever you are. She's at another meeting trying to get it to everyone. But these pieces of paper broken down piece by piece, item by item, and explained in, I'm sorry, very small detail for our public is the only way a bond is going to pass, whether it's a big one in November, a small one in November, whether it's a big one in May or a small one in May. Until the people understand the why we're asking for this money and how it affects our community, let's face it, if we're not having technology, if we're not having football stadiums, who's going to want to move to Baytown? Okay? Until people, the community can really understand the why, we'll never go forward. And at this point, we're looking at moving backwards, am I not correct? Moving backwards in technology 10 or 15 years.
Thank you.
Amen.
Just a note, it doesn't take years to build a school. The last 2 elementaries were built in 11 months. And it's only about 15 months for a junior high. So you don't gain anything by passing that. You don't gain much. You don't gain a whole lot by passing that in the fall versus the spring. Because you still got, if you pass it now, you're still going to be 2020 before you put kids in school. And you still got to go rezone to do it, which means you're going to be in the end of the 2020 school session anyway. But you got time to build schools.
One of the things that I'd like to respond with that is,
the engineering was done before the bond was approved in 2013. The engineering is at least 4 to 6 months, even for the cookie cutter design.
and to be honest, we have pushed through very quickly on a lot of these projects. I was at a meeting recently at the AGC, which gave us all these figures and talked about the inflation rates. And their biggest complaint from contractors and subcontractors around is, I don't want other architects under the bus, but they don't have enough time to vet everything out. A project's never completely finished in design. There are change orders, things happen, that's how construction works. However, if they have an ample amount of time, but they're working to meet our deadlines for when school starts or when there's a Christmas break to have something built by and moved into. And so us squeezing those timelines, and we've done that quite a lot. So if we allow them to have the time that is necessary to design and then to construct, the construction cost also varies depending on that timeline. If we're telling them, no, we need it by this date, you can't have those extra 2 months, we're paying for that as well.
School districts are some of the toughest people to work for architects and construction people. Am I telling the truth?
Yes.
You have seen about it today.
I've been on the outside.
Dr. Price, I think it needs to be said because the term fluff was used on these projects that was asked the district, what are your critical needs? And these priorities are all priority ones. There's one, a couple of twos. There's nothing on here that's fluff. There's some things on here that people may not fully understand the need for, but they're not fluff. The original committee recommendation, we're at what, 254? We add everything in right now? 258? 255. The original recommendation from the committee, and probably very few of you in this room know this, the original recommendation from the committee was $299 million. So it's only about $40 million for what the committee recommended. It was at a meeting, at the board meeting that I wasn't there, where there was $86 million added by the board members, not by the committee. And that's what happened when it went from what had been put together by months and months of work by the administration and by the committee. And then you had one board member who, school board member, who decided to throw in everything. And those things that were thrown in were things that we as a committee had said we can't afford right now. We had made those hard choices as to what should and shouldn't be included in that bond. And so when the bond, when the school board added in that $86 million, and we had always put the multi-purpose building in a separate Proposition 2, because we knew that some people in the community would see value and some people wouldn't. And that's why it wasn't one proposition. But when you went from $299 million plus 60, which is around 360, and you went to 434, then we knew as a committee that it was going to fail that night. Okay, we didn't have to wait for people to knock on doors and say, "Hey, this is wrong." It was beaten that night, and so now we're at the very critical, and we're still at 255, which is only 40 million from where we were a while ago, and we would have gotten more than we're going to get now. So I think that if you do the 255 in November, I think that you're really hamstringing yourself for addressing any of the other needs, because if you don't have schools, if you don't have major facilities in a bond, and then they're just voting on things that they can't see. Nobody can see the infrastructure. Nobody can see the HVAC. Nobody can see the things, but they can see a building. And there's psychology in this. And so I would think that we would be better served to go back and start the process again and work to put together a bond that has everything in it that we absolutely need and can afford in May of 2019. Because I think if you put in what you need in November of 2018, you're still going to be at $255 million, and the largest bond issue we've ever passed is $270. And you've got to have, these are critical items. We asked the administration to come back with critical items, and they did. And we can't, there's nobody in this room that has the knowledge and the ability to say, no, that's not a critical item. You either have confidence in the administration or you don't. And I have confidence in the administration. I don't always have confidence in some of the board decisions. And that decision that night to add $86 million was a bad decision. And that's what killed the bond. When you got up to $434 million, game over. And so I would really hate to see us go forward with a bond in November because of all the uncertainty. We've never lost two bonds in a row. But if we lose two bonds in a row, we're going to really be in a horrible situation. And I think that if we want to address all these issues, and I understand the woman's concern about trying to explain all this to everybody, but let me just say something about that. There's no way to do that. There's no way to do that. If you could get everybody who's going to vote to come sit in this meeting for 4 or 5 weeks at a time, then yes, you can do that. But there's no way to do it in the mail. There's no way to do it in the newspaper. There's no way to get people up to the level of knowledge that you are tonight. It just doesn't happen. What they look at is they look at the total number and how much it's going to cost them on their tax bill. End of story. You can talk to them about demographics, and they understand that. But you can't talk to them, really, about LED versus mercury vapor. That's just not going to be part of their thought process. And so it really comes down to every bond we've ever had, and we've only lost one since I've been doing this since the 80s, is it was on cost. How much is it going to cost? How big is it? And the longer you put it off, the bigger it gets, because the bigger your needs are and the more expensive it is. So, I don't think that we can pass a $254 million bond come November, because as Mike Beard said, November election is going to be a very contentious election. And I just think that it would be better served, every bond issue that we've ever had, every bond election that we've ever had has been in the traditional date of May. And it usually is with the board election. There's a board election come May of 2019. There's 3 board members up, and one of them desperately doesn't want this on his board election. But that's just too bad. That's me.
Dr. Price, can I just respond? Because I am the one that used the word fluff, and Judge, I appreciate you calling me out on that. That was for lack of a better word. I knew when I said it, it was not meant as fluff, so I appreciate you saying that. What I should have said was other stuff, so I misspoke when I used the word fluff. Let me go on record as saying I believe that these are critical needs, but I am separating those from the brick and mortar buildings that we were talking about building. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for clearing that up.
The other thing to keep in mind come November is there's going to be a multi-billion-dollar bond for Harris County for the flood.
No, that's this month. That's this month. That's in 2 weeks. That's in 2 weeks. No, it's this month. They're all coming to my mail.
Okay, all right. But still, within a few months, we'll be asking for more money, and we've got so many people in our pockets now, I can't reach them myself.
We talked at the last meeting, it was the 99 bond?
But I don't remember the 99 bond.
Okay.
Failed in May.
So
I wouldn't have brought that up.
But I don't think that Baytown's going to turn down a second bond if we whittle it down to critical needs that everybody can agree on. You know, don't give people something that they can latch onto as a negative.
So how would you get everybody in this community to agree on what the critical needs are when you've got the administration telling you what the critical needs are? So do you think that you can get a bond passed? Do you think you can get a bond passed in November for $255 million? Because that's what you're looking at if you address the critical needs and the buildings. $255 million.
I wouldn't do 250.
I know you wouldn't. That's why I'm saying I don't think you should try to do it in November, because that's what we need to do. And if you're doing it less than that, then you're shortchanging the kids. You're shortchanging the kids.
Well, you're saying if we do less than
$255 million, you're shortchanging the kids.
I think there's stuff that can wait to May or November 2019 election, where we can go through, work through some of these items, and still be able to get the buildings started that the demographics are saying.
It's hard to look back. I believe you get your constituents or your voters lose interest when they see one and then another.
Yeah, they're not going to vote on it.
You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't have.
What you're going to do, you're automatically going to get some other votes, because here they go.
Okay.
You have to get it in one shot. You can't do that.
We're getting a lot of feedback, and this is great. But you know what? Guess who needs this feedback? Our board. Okay? We're going to take this feedback to the board. We're going to ask, and I'm going to go out on a limb, but I'm going to ask that you call, email, and show up at the board meeting to give this feedback to the board as well. Because we need this feedback to go to them. We're going to take it to them, but we need you to take it to them as well.
Next board meeting is Monday night, correct?
Monday night.
Mr. Price, one more thing to take to our board members, get our superintendent contract.
Amen.
That needs to be done. I encourage everybody here to get there Monday and encourage our board, direct our board, to get our superintendent a contract.
We need to fill the room the same way we did when we want to get rid of the last superintendent. We need to do that to support this one.
Monday at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
I don't care for that, but that's going to be Monday night. That's a Monday night issue. We're going to go ahead and say, if there's no more questions about tonight. Yes.
Is this on the agenda for Monday night?
No, it's not on the agenda.
But thank you all for your participation, for the meetings over the past couple of months. And thank you and good night. And you know, our next step, when we do get feedback from the board, I hope that we can count on you all to follow up and be on our committee as we move forward.
So when will I be on?
Thank you again.